What I am about to share with you opens a thin gap between what was once concealed and what you have always known but never named. When you are ready to receive it, the way you see yourself will change entirely. Awakening does not happen in mystical moments as people often imagine. It does not appear as a grand sign, a calling echoing across the sky, or a surreal experience. Awakening begins at the exact moment you sense something very small yet strong enough to shift the entire direction of your awareness. It is when you notice a subtle change in the way you perceive everything. It is not the outer world that changes, but the way you touch that world becomes different. It may appear when you are sitting in a quiet room, when you pause in the middle of a busy day, or when you feel as if the air around you has become slightly denser in a way you cannot explain. The truth is that the field within you is always operating, always sending signals, always touching your awareness in every moment. But only when you become still enough do you realize that another layer of consciousness is opening within you. The moment of awakening is often recognized not because it is big, but because it is precise. You suddenly see clearly something that once seemed ordinary, that every experience in your life is not random. Life is not happening in scattered pieces while you merely react. Everything is responding to you. Every encounter, every opportunity, every challenge, every change moves in a rhythm that mirrors your inner rhythm, as if reality itself is being programmed by the state you carry within. Realizing this is the beginning of awakening, because once you see it, you cannot return to the old way of perceiving. You begin to see that your emotions are not just reactions, but signals. Your beliefs are not just thoughts, but shaping forces. Your attention is not just a tool of awareness, but an organizing energy that structures reality. Awakening is the moment you understand that you are not simply living in a fixed material world. You are living inside an intelligent field of information that responds. A flexible layer of reality that constantly adjusts according to the signals you emit. When you feel stuck, you see narrow paths. When you feel expanded, possibilities appear everywhere. When you shrink from fear, everything in front of you contracts. When you stand firm in your clarity, reality opens the way. What you once called luck or fate is merely the reflection of your inner state. It is not that you have never seen this truth. It is simply that now you have matured enough to recognize it. Awakening does not bring dazzling light. It returns you to the simple truth that you have always been a part of a larger field of consciousness, and that field is not separate from you. It is you in a wider, deeper, more refined form. Every person in your life, every moment, every event is a structure formed from the signals you emit. These signals do not come from the words you speak or the lines you write. These signals come from the frequency where emotion and awareness meet. People often think they must work hard to change their circumstances. But the truth is that circumstances only change when your frequency shifts first. The field always precedes physical form. A state always precedes result. Awakening is the moment you begin to see the true chain of causality in your life. You realize that the feeling you hold in the morning does not disappear. It becomes the material of what you experience throughout the day. A belief you have carried for years does not lie dormant in your mind. It becomes the framework that shapes everything you see. A fear you never acknowledged becomes the shortcut that leads you into repetitive experiences. When you see this clearly, you no longer believe in randomness. You understand that everything is functioning like a logical system based on frequency. The most powerful change when you awaken is not the world. It is your sense of position within that world. You suddenly realize that you are not someone struggling against the current. You are the one creating the current from the beginning. This awareness dissolves all feelings of powerlessness. It opens a new kind of responsibility. Not heavy responsibility, but the recognition of the natural power you have always held. When you change your perspective, you change the field. When you change the field, you change the trajectory of reality. Awakening is not a temporary state. It is the point at which you can no longer return to your old self. You begin to see clearly the relationships that no longer fit, the choices that no longer match your frequency, the habits that make you shrink. You realize you are stepping into a different field of life, where you no longer need to control everything, but only maintain clarity within. The field always responds with perfect precision. When you stand in the right place, reality adjusts itself. When the inner field awakens, you begin to feel signals that are very small, yet very real. A subtle vibration in your chest when something is right for you. A slight contraction for reasons you cannot name when something is wrong. A stream of light in your awareness when a new possibility opens. A deep silence in the mind when you stand in alignment with your true frequency. All of these are the language of the field, and when you listen to it, you no longer live based on fear or habit. You live based on the union of intuition, emotion, and awareness. This is awakening, not mystical, not loud, not requiring ceremony. It is simply the moment you see clearly that reality does not exist outside of you. It lives within the frequency you are emitting. And when you become still enough to recognize this, you step into the phase where everything in your life begins to shift according to the rhythm you carry within. You no longer ask how to create the reality you desire. You understand that reality always flows from the person you are. You only need to stand in alignment with your deepest nature, and from there the field will take care of the rest. There is a truth very few people can see, not because it is difficult to understand, but because it is too obvious. The truth is that this entire life, from the smallest things like a random encounter to the great turning points that shape your destiny, does not operate through thousands of separate laws, as people often say. Everything revolves around one single mechanism, a mechanism buried so deeply that all masters, all traditions, all spiritual or scientific systems are only touching small parts of it. People call it many names. The law of attraction, the law of reflection, the law of resonance, the law of cause and effect, the law of frequency. But all of these names are merely fragments of a larger structure. And once you understand that structure, you no longer need to memorize any law at all, because everything you want to create in life begins with this very mechanism. The mechanism is so simple that you can hear it and understand it instantly, yet so deep that it can take a lifetime to truly grasp. Reality does not respond to the words you speak. It responds to the frequency you emit. This frequency does not lie in surface thoughts. It does not lie in the affirmations you repeat. It does not lie in the images you visualize. It lies at a deeper level. The level where your beliefs, emotions, awareness, and attention merge into one stream. That stream is your true state, and that state writes the shape of your life. This is the foundational law beneath all laws. You do not attract what you want. You reflect what you are. People may hear this hundreds of times, may listen to it from dozens of sources, but only when one day you look directly into your own experiences and see clearly that everything around you aligns with your inner frequency, from the beautiful things to the things you try to avoid, do you finally understand reality has no preference. It can only reflect. And you, through your state, are the one who defines what will be reflected back. When looking at life, most people only see the outer results. They see someone else's luck. They see someone else's ease. They see their own failures. But they do not see the operating layer underneath. They do not realize that every result is the product of a state that existed beforehand, whether that state was conscious or not. When you fear loss, you will encounter situations that make you feel loss. When you believe you are not good enough, you will experience situations that reinforce that belief. When you feel inner expansion, life expands with you. When you stand in clarity, everything becomes coherent. This is not about positive or negative thinking. This is the natural mechanism of reality. The question is, are you willing to look deeply into this? Not with your mind, but with absolute honesty toward your own experience. When you observe closely enough, you will recognize one repeating pattern. Everything you have ever created in your life, both good and bad, began with an inner state, without exception. When you were standing in confidence, everything flowed with unusual ease. When you doubted yourself, life became heavy. When you opened your heart, you met the right people and the right opportunities. When you shrank, everything became narrow. And when this truth becomes too clear to deny, you begin to understand that you are not shaped by the world. You are shaping the world. Right now, I want to ask you one thing. Are you truly ready to look straight into this mechanism and apply it to your own life? Not in the sense of hearing it because it sounds nice and then forgetting it, but actually accepting that your life is a reflection of the state you carry and that you have the power to change that state starting today. If you feel that a deep part of you is ready to enter a new path, I want you to comment, "I am ready," not to increase engagement, but to send a clear signal to the field that you have chosen to change. And also, so I know you are here with me. For creators like me, your presence is priceless. I am grateful for that. Returning to the foundational law, when you understand that your frequency is the center of all creation, you begin to look at life in a completely different way. You no longer seek outer explanations for what happens in your life. You turn inward and observe the state you carry. You ask more important questions. What signal am I emitting? What am I believing? What frequency am I living in? Because these questions open the doorway to real freedom. Once you see the state, you can change it. And when you change it, reality must follow. What keeps most people stuck is not their circumstances, but their unconsciousness about their own mechanism. They change their actions, but keep the same frequency. They change their plans, but keep their old beliefs. They change their environment, but carry the same inner self. And then they are surprised when everything returns to its old shape after a short time. But reality does not care about external changes. It cares about one thing only: whether the state you emit matches the reality you want to step into or not. Once you understand this law, you begin to realize that everything begins from within you. When your state is right, everything outside rearranges itself. When your state is wrong, the harder you try, the further you drift from your goal. This is a simple truth, but a powerful one. And it is also what allows you to change your life faster than you ever thought possible, because you do not need to change the whole world. You only need to change your frequency. A small shift inside can create massive movements outside. This foundational law does not promise that life will always be easy. It simply states that you always have the power to shape your own experience. And when you understand that, you enter a different phase of living. A phase where you no longer chase results, but focus on your state. A phase where you no longer seek luck, but generate the frequency that aligns. A phase where you no longer feel swept away by the current, but become the one who shapes the current. When you stand in this understanding, life becomes the most honest mirror, and you become the creator of your own reality. This is the law beneath all laws, the law behind every law, the law that once you grasp makes everything else clear. And from that moment, your journey truly begins. If you have commented, "I am ready," I want you to know that choice is more powerful than you think. It does not just tell me you are here. It tells the field itself that you have stepped into the state of someone who actively shapes their own reality. And from here, everything begins to move with you. And human beings do not operate as a simple entity. Within you exist three different layers functioning simultaneously, intersecting with one another, and together determining what you call your life. Every experience you have, every result you see, every repeating cycle in your life begins from the interaction of these three layers. When they are misaligned, life feels heavy and tangled. When they are aligned, reality responds in a way that allows you to feel flow, clarity, and lightness. Understanding these three layers is understanding how you create your own life, not through surface effort, but through inner structure. The first layer is the observer. This is the part of you that does not change, that is always silent and present, always watching everything without being pulled into what is happening. This is pure awareness, carrying no story, no emotion, no bias. It simply knows when you feel yourself being swept into thoughts, worries, and recurring mental patterns. It is because you temporarily forget that you have a deeper, observing layer. This layer is untouched by the noise of the mind. It is like the sky behind every storm. No matter how intense the storm is, the sky is never harmed. In the same way, no matter how chaotic your thoughts become, the observer remains there, watching without being dragged away. When you reconnect with this layer, you step into the position of the navigator, no longer the person being carried by circumstances. The second layer is the emotional body. This is the most misunderstood part of a person because many believe emotions are merely natural reactions to events, but to the field, emotions are the true frequency you emit. Language may say one thing, visualization may aim for another, but emotion is what you're actually sending into the energetic field. The emotional body is the most honest translation of your inner frequency. It does not lie. When you say you trust but your chest tightens, the field hears that tightening. When you say you are confident but there is an undercurrent of doubt, the field hears the frequency of that doubt. This is why many people cannot create what they desire, because the emotional body is broadcasting the opposite of what they try to think. If the observer is the one who sees, the emotional body is the one who vibrates. The third layer is the field. The field does not exist outside you as a separate system. It is the expansion of you in invisible form. The field is the vibrational space around you, carrying all signals from your beliefs, emotions, memories, and the state you live in. It is the invisible map that reality uses to respond. Every event that arrives, every person you meet, every opportunity that appears aligns with the shape of your field. This is not mysticism, but the natural mechanism of interaction between consciousness and information. The field is the layer that reveals the level at which you are truly operating. When these three layers are not aligned, life feels split into three directions. The observer wants clarity, but the emotional body holds fear, and the field responds as if you are standing in uncertainty. You want to move forward, but are pulled back by old beliefs. You say you have overcome a fear, but the emotional body still carries the memory of disappointment. You think you are putting in effort, but the field responds with mismatched experiences because the signals inside you are contradicting one another. This misalignment creates the confusion many mistake for fate playing tricks or life being unfair. But in truth, it is simply the lack of coherence among the three operating layers. When the observer is awake, but the emotional body is not released, you understand the problem but cannot change it. When the emotional body wants something, but the observer lacks clarity, you are easily swept by emotion without direction. When the field carries vibrational residue from the past, it constantly pulls you back into old experiences even though you have changed your thoughts. All of this creates the feeling that you are walking but not moving, or that life is repeating cycles no matter how much effort you make. Everything stems from the misalignment of these three layers. But when these three layers align, you enter the state many people call flow. In this state, the observer sees clearly, the emotional body synchronizes, and the field responds instantly. Your clarity creates the right emotion creates the right frequency creates the right experience. Everything becomes simple. When the three layers connect, you no longer have to try so hard. You do not need to force yourself to trust. You naturally stand in trust. You do not need to force yourself to feel worthy. The emotional body automatically aligns with the new belief. You do not need to chase opportunities. The field brings them to you because your vibration is emitting a clear signal. The observer is the layer that helps you escape the mental loop and see without reacting. The emotional body is the layer that shows you your true frequency. The field is the layer that shows you the larger picture you are sending into the world. These three layers are not separate. They are one system. When you understand each layer, you understand yourself. When you adjust each layer, you adjust your life. Reality is not as complicated as people think. Complexity appears only when your inner world splits in different directions. But once you bring the three layers into coherence, you will see that life is actually simple. It responds with absolute precision. It never makes mistakes. It never misinterprets. It only reflects the frequency created by the combination of your three layers. And once you see this, you no longer ask why something happened. You simply look at which layer is out of alignment. That question opens the door to real transformation. A human being is not just a mind, not just emotions, not just energy. A human being is the intersection of all three. And when this intersection becomes harmonious, you realize the power you have always held. Power does not lie in controlling the world. Power lies in adjusting the three layers within. So the world must respond to the shape of you. This is the multi-layered you. This is the inner structure reality uses to write the next chapter of your life. Once you grasp it, you hold the key to changing everything in your world. All change in life has an origin point that very few people ever see. It does not lie in action, it does not lie in goals, it does not lie in effort, and it does not lie in circumstances. The true origin point lies in three invisible factors operating within you. These factors silently determine which timeline you enter, what you keep, what you lose, and what you repeat. They are the trio of invisible levers: belief, timeline, and nervous system. When these three elements are misaligned, life becomes an endless chain of challenges. When they align, you enter a state where everything seems to arrive at the right time, in the right way, at the right pace. Understanding these levers not only helps you change reality, but also shows you why sometimes you put in so much effort, yet life does not seem to respond. Belief is the first lever. Belief is not simply the sentences you say in your mind. Belief is the deep layer of perception where you define who you are and how the world works. It is the invisible structure upon which all your choices, behaviors, and emotions are built. You may think you want something, but if the belief deep underneath says it is not for you, reality will always respond to the belief rather than the desire. Belief always wins over willpower. Belief always surpasse effort. Belief always defines the boundary you allow yourself to cross. Belief is not just what you think. It is what you know without needing proof. It is what you have absorbed from experience, from memory, from moments you believe you have forgotten. Many people live their whole lives carrying old beliefs formed in distant years from experiences they never revisited. A comment from someone long ago, a brief failure, a moment of rejection, a time when they were misunderstood. All of these can become belief structures operating silently in the dark. And when these beliefs remain unseen, they begin creating loops in life. Not because life is harsh, but because belief is rewriting reality according to its old blueprint. The second lever is timeline. Every belief corresponds to a timeline. Every state corresponds to a version of reality. You do not attract life. You shift through timelines that match your frequency. Timeline is not a set of mysterious destiny branches. It is simply the consequence of the frequency you emit in the present moment. When belief changes, timeline changes. When emotion shifts, timeline shifts. When you stand in clarity, the timeline opens new possibilities. When you stand in doubt, the timeline contracts and pulls you into familiar patterns. The important truth is that your timeline is never fixed. It changes with every small decision, every deep thought, every vibration you send out. You may be very close to a much better timeline than the one you are living in. But if old beliefs pull you back, you step into the timeline containing old experiences. This is why many people feel as if they return to the starting point despite trying to change. They do not return because they are weak. They return because their inner signal pulls them back into the timeline that matches the old belief. Timeline always stays loyal to frequency. It does not judge you. It does not reward or punish. It only responds. The third lever is the nervous system. This is the part very few people recognize as crucial in their journey. The nervous system is responsible for your sense of safety, stability, and your capacity to hold your new frequency. No matter how strong your beliefs are or how clear your timeline becomes, if the nervous system is not wide enough to contain that new frequency, you will be pulled back into the old state. Humans do not live purely through willpower. Humans live through internal safety. When a new version of you emerges, the nervous system checks whether you have the internal capacity to maintain it. If the new version is too strong for your nervous system, you will feel tension, discomfort, anxiety, or a pullback into old habits, even though your conscious mind wants to move forward. The nervous system determines whether you can hold the new timeline. This is why many people can manifest what they want for a short period but cannot keep it. A new timeline requires a new nervous system. Expanding the nervous system is expanding your capacity to contain a new reality. Many moments that people call challenges are simply the process of the nervous system adjusting to a larger frequency. When you understand this, you no longer fear the discomfort that appears during growth. You see that the stretching is a signal of expansion. These three levers always operate at the same time. Belief shapes the signal. Timeline arranges reality. Nervous system keeps you standing in the new reality. When all three align, you enter the phase that others look at and call luck. But it is not luck, it is internal coherence. And when this coherence is established, life becomes unexpectedly fluid. The people you need to meet appear at the right moment. The opportunities you need to see become visible. Doors that once stayed shut suddenly open, not because the external world changed instantly, but because you stepped into the timeline where those things already exist. Life does not respond to effort without structure. Life responds to alignment between belief, timeline, and nervous system. If one of the three is misaligned, you will feel resistance. Not because you are wrong, but because your system is not united. When you understand these three levers and begin adjusting from within, you no longer feel that you must fight for what you want. You simply step into the state the timeline is already opened for you. This is the deepest mechanism of true transformation. A transformation that begins within, flows through the field, and ends by placing you into the version of life you have always been reaching for. All major movements in life begin with three forces that humans most often misunderstand: desire, contrast, and resistance. Three forces many people see as obstacles, as problems, as signs that they are going in the wrong direction. But when you look deeply into their nature, you will see that these are actually the most powerful, energetic forces that help you step into a higher version of yourself. They do not come to work against you. They come to guide you toward what is right. The issue is that most people react to these forces in ways that turn them into burdens. But when you understand their true mechanism, you begin to operate with a level of ease and confidence you once thought was impossible. Desire is the first force. Not all desires are the same. Some desires come from fear, from lack, from the feeling of not being enough. And some desires come from a deep layer of awareness where you feel as if a higher version of you is calling you forward. True desire is not what you think you want. It is the signal the field sends to let you know you are ready to enter a new layer of reality. Desire is a gentle reminder that you are standing at the threshold of expansion. When you feel a clear desire, it is not because you lack something. It is because you have become someone who is capable of stepping into it. Many people misunderstand desire as selfish ambition, but true desire is a map. Without desire, you cannot see the direction you need to go. When you long for something, it is not a random wish. It is the union between your awareness and your new capacity. Desire does not appear at the lower levels of being. It appears when you have expanded enough to step into a larger reality. What you want does not speak about what you lack. It speaks about the person you are becoming. And when you see desire from this angle, you no longer feel ashamed for wanting something better. You realize desire is the precise naming of potential. The second force is contrast. This is the force most people mistake for a sign they are going wrong. But contrast does not come to tell you that you are wrong. Contrast comes to show you what is right for you. When you experience something that feels uncomfortable, misaligned, or completely opposite from what you want, it is not because you are failing. Contrast is helping you see what truly matters. Without contrast, you cannot distinguish what aligns with your essence. Contrast is a tool that creates clarity. It does not destroy your path, it refines it. If you look closely at your life, you will see that the most difficult phases are the exact phases that made you decide most clearly how you truly want to live. A misaligned experience can make you choose a direction that changes your whole trajectory. An unhealthy relationship can make you recognize your self-worth. A failure can guide you to a more suitable path. Contrast is the light shining on what you have been ignoring. It does not pull you down. It pushes you into a clarity you could not see before. The third force is resistance. This is the most misunderstood force of all. Resistance is not the enemy. Resistance is the energetic blockage in your system. It is where your old frequency collides with your new direction. Resistance appears only when you are stepping into a larger version of yourself. If you are not expanding, you do not experience resistance. Resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that you are standing at the doorway of transformation. The body and mind are programmed to favor familiarity. When you step into something new, your system reacts with slight tension, doubt, or discomfort. This is the nervous system checking whether you are truly ready to leave the old frequency. If you misunderstand resistance, you will think it is a sign to return to the old self. But when you look at resistance through the lens of energy, you see it is simply the friction between the old frequency and the new frequency forming. Desire, contrast, and resistance do not operate separately. They work as a system. Desire gives you the signal for direction. Contrast gives you the clarity to stay on track. Resistance gives you the test to know whether you are stable enough to hold the new frequency. Together, these three forces guide you into the timeline you are being called toward. But if you look at them through fear, you will see a path filled with obstacles. If you look at them through understanding, you will see that each force is essential to expansion. When desire appears, see it as a reminder that you have outgrown your current version. When contrast appears, see it as light shining on what you need to release. When resistance appears, see it as the natural test of the nervous system before you enter a new frequency. And when you view them this way, you begin to see that your journey is no longer just a chain of events. It becomes an inner alchemy, a refinement process where everything is filtered, shaped, and aligned to match your highest version. Humans often try to avoid discomfort, avoid failure, avoid the tension that change brings. But those moments are where your inner structure is renewed. Desire helps you remember you have become bigger. Contrast helps you remove what no longer matches your essence. Resistance helps you build the capacity to hold the reality you are moving toward. Without these three forces, you cannot change in truth. You can only change on the surface without touching the deeper layers. When you clearly see these three forces, you no longer fear them. You begin to move with a lightness you never had before. You know that each force carries an invitation to become clearer, an invitation to release, an invitation to expand, an invitation to step into the timeline most aligned with your true nature. And when you walk with these forces instead of against them, you begin to live as the creator, not the one being pulled by circumstances. These three forces are the alchemy of transformation. And when you understand their mechanism, you hold one of the most important keys to stepping into the most powerful version of yourself. There is a truth most people only understand intellectually, but have never touched through experience. It is that the most powerful version of you does not live in the future. It is not something you must force yourself to become. It already exists in the field, in the deeper layer of your own awareness, in a timeline you can step into at any moment if you are awake enough to recognize it. Real change does not happen when you try to become a better version of yourself. It happens when you begin living as if you already are that version right now. Every developmental path converges into one single point. You only need to choose which version of yourself you will stand in. It is not that you act in order to become the new version. You act as if you already are that version. It is not that you try to prove anything. You simply step into the space that version already occupies. The field does not respond to your effort. It responds to the frequency you hold in this moment. The version you are living today is the result of old patterns repeated long enough. If you continue seeing yourself through old images, you will continue recreating the old reality. Your awareness cannot create a reality that exceeds the inner image you have accepted. This is why the shift is not a process that begins from the outside. It begins when you decisively change your inner position. When you change where your awareness stands, the entire reality around you begins to rearrange itself to match that new position. Many people believe that change happens through gradual improvement, but with the field, transformation does not unfold in a linear way. It happens through level jumping. You do not climb to the next floor. You step into the doorway of the higher version. That doorway is always open. The only barrier is that you continue standing in the old image of yourself. This mechanism becomes clearest when you observe those moments when you suddenly feel that something inside you has changed, even though nothing outside has. You cannot explain why, but you know you can no longer live as you did before. That is the moment you have slipped into a different timeline. And reality needs a few days or a few weeks to reorganize itself according to that new layer. You do not need to try to become the better version. You only need to act as if you are already there. When you step into the frequency of that version, effort becomes unnecessary. You no longer need to convince yourself. Everything begins to flow in the way your new version naturally attracts. Remember that the field does not receive signals from desire. The field receives signals from the state you are living in. When you live as if you already are that version, the field must respond accordingly. This is not philosophy. This is the operational mechanism of awareness in the field. Look deeply into yourself. There are things you once dreamed of achieving, but they felt too big, too far away at the time. But when you evolved in awareness, what once seemed impossible suddenly became natural. It was not the circumstances that changed first. It was you who changed first, and circumstances came afterward to confirm your new version. This is the clearest evidence that the shift happens inside before anything appears outside. But stepping into the new version is not just imagination. It is the act of letting go of old behaviors that no longer fit you. When you stand in the awareness of the stronger version, you no longer feel comfortable with choices that the old version once accepted. You begin to sense clearly what pulls you out of the new frequency. Not because those things are bad, but because they are no longer compatible. The shift is not only expansion, it is restructuring. It is the release of what no longer belongs to you. Living from the version that already exists in the field means you begin acting from clarity rather than fear. You begin speaking the things you once suppressed. You begin choosing what creates expansion instead of what feels safe. You begin separating from energies you know are pulling you back into the old layer. You no longer fight circumstances. You simply adjust yourself to match the new layer. And when you maintain stability in that layer, life begins to adjust itself to match you. Those who do not understand the mechanism of the shift try to change their actions while keeping their inner world the same. They say positive words but still hold the frequency of doubt. They make big plans but still stand in a self-limiting image. And they assume the technique does not work. But the issue is not the technique. The issue is the layer of awareness they are standing on. You cannot create a life that surpasses the version of yourself you are living as. To change the result, you must change the one creating the result. The version you choose to live from determines your entire trajectory. Feel this deeply. Every time you choose to act as if you already are the version you are aiming for, you are not pretending. You are pulling the future closer to the present. You are creating an intersection between two timelines. And that intersection is what allows the field to reorganize circumstances to reflect you. There is nothing mystical here. This is how reality operates, according to the frequency you carry. If you are still listening at this point, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Are you still here? Are you still present in this journey? If you are still here, show it with a like, not to increase numbers, but to let me know that you are truly stepping into this layer of transformation. Your presence in this moment is more valuable than any metric. It is the signal that you are holding the frequency of the new version and not being pulled back to the old layer. Real shifting is never loud. It is not the moment you suddenly become someone else. It is like the subtle change in light, something others cannot see, but you can feel clearly. You feel you are no longer who you were. You feel the quiet inside has moved into a new position. You feel you cannot return to the old layer, even if you try. This is the clearest sign of the shift. Once you have changed your inner position, nothing can return you to your old shape unless you lower your awareness yourself. The version that already exists in the field is always stable, whole, and clear. When you begin living from that version, life no longer operates according to your old thoughts. It operates according to the new frequency you are holding. You begin attracting situations your old version could never have reached. You begin meeting people you previously could not access. You begin receiving opportunities that were once far beyond your capacity, not because you became lucky, but because you became aligned. The shift is not magic. It is the intersection between your current self and your potential self. When you step into the version that already exists, everything around you automatically rearranges to match you. This is how the field operates. There is no exception. There is no mistake. There is only alignment and misalignment. When you align, your life changes. When you do not align, everything stays still. And with one inner decision, you can shift layers in this very moment. The shift begins when you live as if you already are that version. No waiting, no delaying, no treating it as something in the future. When you choose to stand in your most powerful version right now, the field must respond. It cannot do otherwise. And this is the mechanism that moves you from where you stand to where you belong. In silence, in clarity, in the consistency of awareness. Change begins from within you. And the next chapter of your life begins at the moment you decide to live as if you have already become it. Reality does not change through hope, through theories, or through beautiful words. It changes through practices that can directly influence the deepest layer of your being. Practices that are not performative, not rituals for the sake of appearance, not habits you repeat just to feel productive, but subtle and precise shifts in awareness where true transformation begins. When you understand this, you stop searching for complex methods. You only need practices strong enough to change your position in the field. And when that position shifts, the entire reality around you must shift accordingly. The first practice is recalibrating the state of the body. No cognitive technique can work when your nervous system is in contraction. When your body is pushed into a survival response, the field cannot receive a clear signal from you. This is what many people overlook. They try to force themselves into a high frequency with positive thinking, while their nervous system is emitting signals of fear and lack. You cannot trick the field with words. The field reads only state. When the body is brought back to stability, softness, openness, you immediately access a deeper layer of awareness. This is why slow, deep, intentional breathing is far more effective than complicated techniques. It reactivates the inner sense of safety and makes you receptive. The second practice is the ability to turn inward without trying to control. People often sit down to try to change their thoughts, adjust their feelings, rearrange their inner world. But true practice is not controlling the inner world, it is becoming aware of it. When you observe what is happening within without trying to interfere, you shift from the layer of the one entangled in emotion to the layer of the one who sees. And the observing layer is where the field begins to respond differently. And when you look at fear from the distance of awareness, it loses its power to control you. When you look at doubt from a wider space, it becomes a signal rather than a barrier. This is one of the most powerful practices because it frees you from identifying with old patterns. The third practice is shaping the inner image as a felt experience rather than imagination. Many people visualize their future as a picture in the mind, but the most effective practice is to feel in the body the sensations of the version you have already become. When you feel the ease, steadiness, expansion, and confidence of that version, you are sending the strongest signal possible into the field. The field does not respond to vague images. The field responds to felt frequency. When you feel it in every cell, you are living in the future before the future arrives. And this is the mechanism that forces the future to reorganize itself to match you. The fourth practice is releasing all forced effort and shifting into a state of allowing. This is the hardest for those who are used to controlling. When you force reality to happen your way, you unintentionally emit the signal that you do not trust the field. This is the fastest way to create resistance. But when you shift into allowing, you open the path for the field to operate naturally. Allowing is not passive. Allowing is syncing with an order you cannot see but can perceive with intuition. When you allow, the right direction appears. When you force, everything becomes foggy. This practice helps you step into flow without strain. The fifth practice is radical honesty with yourself. You cannot change reality if you continue standing in a version you know is no longer aligned. Honesty helps you see where you are shrinking yourself. It helps you recognize the old habits that pull you away from the frequency of the new version. No one can step into their highest self while keeping behaviors born from a lower frequency. Honesty is not judgment. It is the light shining on the parts you have ignored, and that light is what helps you realign. The sixth practice is learning to move with intuition instead of logic. Intuition is direct feedback from the field. It always moves ahead of logic. When you rely solely on logic, you operate within the limits of old experience. But when you follow intuition, you are moving according to the signals of the version that already exists in the field. Intuition never speaks loudly. It is always a light, clear sensation with no specific reason, yet strangely correct. Each time you follow it, you step away from the old route and closer to the timeline where you truly belong. The seventh practice is adjusting your energy by becoming fully present in each moment. If you are physically in the present but mentally in the future, you are emitting the frequency of lack. If you live too much in old memories, you emit the frequency of delay. But when you are present, truly present, your awareness becomes sharp like a concentrated point of energy. This is what synchronizes you with the field. And when synchronization appears, you begin seeing coincidences, doors opening, answers arriving at the right time, not because of luck, but because you have become the point of intersection between awareness and the field. The eighth practice is consistency of awareness, not consistency of action, not discipline through force. Consistency here means maintaining a stable frequency. You do not swing constantly between trust and doubt. You do not keep switching your signal on and off with the field. When your awareness is stable, reality must become stable accordingly. A steady light is stronger than a bright light that flickers. A stable frequency is what allows a new reality to form solidly. These practices are not techniques you perform out of habit. They are the way you operate in each moment. They are not rituals. They are mechanisms that change reality. When you apply them with subtlety, softness, and consistency, you do not only change the surface of life, you change the structure of reality from within. You change the layer of awareness you stand on. And when that layer shifts, everything around you can no longer remain the same. This is the true power of practices that are not flashy but deeply alchemical. They do not create temporary change. They create a shift in the field where all real transformation begins. True return is not a journey of searching for something new. It is the process of realizing that everything you have longed to become has existed within you long before you knew how to name it. Remembrance is not memory. It is unlocking. A form of inner awakening when you realize you are not learning how to become powerful. You are remembering the power that has always lived in the structure of your awareness. All the parts you believed you had to build from scratch were merely covered by layers of dust. When you travel far enough into your inner journey, you begin to understand that you are not changing. You are returning to your true nature. This remembering usually happens in silence. There is no lightning strike, no dramatic awakening like the stories told too beautifully. It is like walking into a familiar room you did not know you had been in before. Everything feels right, everything feels familiar. You cannot explain with logic why you feel that way, but deep in the body there is a gentle certainty that this is something you have known for a very long time. Remembrance does not move through reasoning, it moves through recognition. When you begin remembering, things you once struggled to learn become natural. You no longer have to remind yourself to be strong, to be calm, to be clear. You simply sense the steadiness within. You no longer try to raise your frequency. The frequency rises on its own because you no longer force yourself to be someone else. You do not need to affirm your worth with words. You feel that worth as something alive inside your body. This is the difference between surface level change and remembrance. Surface change requires effort. Remembrance only requires presence. Remembrance does not make your life perfect overnight. It makes your life directional. You begin to see clearly every step you once thought was random. You realize that every event, even the ones you tried to avoid, played an exact role in bringing you here. Nothing was extra. Nothing was a wrong turn. Nothing was wasted. Every loop was a signal pointing the way. Every wound was a doorway to a deeper layer of awareness. When you step into remembrance, everything that once made you resentful becomes a piece of the clarity being formed. This remembering brings a very different kind of stillness, not the stillness of exhaustion, but the stillness of someone who has found their inner anchor. You no longer need to rush, you no longer need to prove, you no longer need to fight the current. You begin to move with a light certainty, knowing that every choice you make arises from the deepest layer of your being. When you stand at this point, every movement carries precision. Even the simplest steps create large shifts in reality. Remembrance is not a state you achieve once and finish. It is a continuous process of returning. Each day you recognize a part of yourself you had forgotten. Each experience opens a deeper layer of the self that has always existed but had not been touched. You begin living as if you are peeling away layers of covering to reveal a core that becomes clearer and clearer. That core is not something you create, it is something you return to. When you live from that core, you are no longer dominated by the noisy layers outside. You see the message behind every event. You feel the movement of the field that most people cannot hear. This remembrance also carries a deep peace with yourself. You no longer blame yourself for old mistakes. You no longer try to erase versions of yourself you think you should be ashamed of. You begin seeing those versions as necessary stages that brought you to this level of maturity. No past was wasted, no pain was unnecessary. Everything was a step required for you to remember this truth. You have always been that person. You simply needed enough time and enough experience to realize it. When you return to remembrance, you no longer seek answers from outside. You no longer chase signs to confirm your direction. You feel the direction from within because you are connected to the layer of awareness where every answer exists before the question appears. Guidance no longer comes from logic. It comes from a deep, clear, light but unwavering sensation. This is what keeps you calm, even when stepping into uncertainty, because external uncertainty no longer affects the certainty within. The return to remembrance is the return to the point where all effort dissolves. You no longer fight reality. You remember that you shape reality. You no longer look for strength elsewhere. You remember that the strength has always been yours. You no longer try to find your place in the world. You remember that you carried a place from the beginning. You no longer chase the future. You remember that the future is born from the frequency you carry in this moment. When you stand in this layer of awareness, everything becomes simple in a very pure way. You no longer depend on what happens. You see the essence in every movement. You no longer wander through crossroads. You know which path carries the energy that matches you. And when you move from this state of remembering, life stops being a puzzle to solve. It becomes a flow you co-create with the field. Everything no longer comes to challenge you, everything comes to bring you deeper into your true self. This return is not a destination, it is your essence. And once you touch it, you no longer want to live in any other way. This is the moment when all layers of awareness converge and you realize that you were never lost, you were always on your way back to yourself.